What is up, everybody? It's almost the end of 2022, so you know what that means. It's time for my best of 2021 list. That's right. I don't know. I meant to do this list last year. I never got around to it. So we're doing it now. I like to have time to sort of figure out what I really like and what actually stuck with me instead of just rushing it out at the end of the year. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to make it super short and sweet, okay? Real quick, here's a list of some stuff that I didn't get around to, even though it took me a year to put this list together, that I think might have made the list if I'd seen it, but I haven't. Here it is. But without further ado, let's get into the list. I'm going to be counting down my top 10 films of 2021, the films that I think are the best, and they are the best because I said so. But anyway, here's the list. Number 10. There is no number 10. I had 9 movies that I thought deserved to make the list, so I'm going to use number 10 for my honorable mentions, and those are Plan B, very cute, fun road trip comedy. I found it really pleasant. I liked it. I still think about it occasionally. It's a really funny movie. I love the main characters. They're great. Power of the Dog. It's a remarkably well done movie. It just hasn't really stuck with me that much, but it's a great film. A great film. It deserved all the nominations and stuff that it got. Red Rocket by Sean Baker. I mean, it's just a good, nice, gritty, fun. I just love a movie about people down on their luck and that really embraces what it's like to actually be poor and stuff too. And the main character is a complete scumbag, but he's kind of entertaining to watch. It just didn't quite make the list. Till Death. I love Megan Fox. I love Jennifer's Body. I checked this movie out. It was fun. It's a good little contained thriller. It's worth checking out. I think it's on like Netflix. Check it out. Licorice Pizza. I'm really getting into Paul Thomas Anderson lately. This one just doesn't quite top the list for me. I enjoyed it. Philip Seymour Hoffman's son fucking rules. I'm hoping he'll be able to even half fill his dad's shoes, but it was good. Just didn't quite make the list. I've also got The Night House on here. It's a decent movie. I like how it's directed, but it's absolutely carried by the lead performance from Rebecca Hall. It makes it super worth watching. And I mean, you might even like it more than I did. It just didn't quite make the cut, but I still think about it occasionally. And in that same vein is another movie I watched called 9 Days. I think it's pretty messy, and I think that the script could have used a little more work, but I love the way this movie looks, and I really like all the ideas that they're playing around with, and I find myself still thinking about it occasionally, so I wanted to just shout it out. It was a super interesting movie. And last but not least, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to discuss this because of all the things I saw in 2021. This is maybe my favorite thing I saw, period. But it's a show, not a movie, and this is best of movies list. So, but in 2021, a show came out called Arcane. It's actually based on the game League of Legends, which I actually have played for over a decade, so I have a little bit of bias towards it. But the show, it's just incredible. It's an amazing show. It's one of my favorite shows I've ever seen, period. It's my favorite thing I saw in 2021. If you've avoided it for some reason because you think, oh, I don't like the video game, so what am I going to get out of it? Please check it out. It's absolutely amazing. It's literally some of the best TV I think that's ever been done. The animation is unbelievable. Cannot wait for season 2. I hope if it's even half as good as the first season, it's going to be, again, one of my favorite things. So special shout out to Arcane. Number 9 is Drive My Car. It's a film from Japan. It was directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, who I'd actually never heard of before, but he made 2 movies in 2021, and he's definitely on my list now. Drive My Car was just, it's one of those movies that comes down to the script being so solid that even though the direction is a little bit plain, it's filmed almost like a play, yet it doesn't matter because the whole thing's just so compelling and the characters are so interesting. It's a little long, and that's why it's not quite super high on the list, but it still is just a really remarkable film, and if you avoided it for some reason, please check it out. And learn to love subtitles, please. Number 8, possibly appropriately next to number 9, were the 2 films that sort of were battling it out for Best International Picture for the Oscars that year, and that is The Worst Person in the World. I actually like this movie just a little bit more than Drive My Car. It's just a really good look at what it's like to sort of be a millennial aged person just trying to make your way through life when there's nothing terribly remarkable about you, and it just is a really laser focused character study of the main character. And I love that it's called The Worst Person in the World because it adds this extra weight to the film where she's not exactly a bad person, but she does make some really interesting choices, and you're just following a pretty interesting life. But what's interesting about it is that it's not even that interesting of a life, but it's very human. It's just such a human movie, and it definitely stuck with me. I wish it would have won Best International, but Drive My Car, was pretty much right up there for me, so I was happy either way. But yeah, The Worst Person in the World, number 8. Number 7 is Dune. I mean, what is there to say about it? It was a pretty big sci-fi blockbuster. The director, Denis Villeneuve, is one of my favorites that's doing it today. Arrival and Blade Runner 2049 are two of my favorite movies of all time, period. Of course, I was excited about Dune, and Dune lived up to my expectations. It's really good. I'm not even that big of a fan of the book, but God, he's just such a good director. I just thought Rebecca Ferguson is the piece of the film that really took it over the top for me. I love her character in the film, and even though her motivations stay kind of subtle and underneath the surface, I just really felt everything she was feeling. The hand in the box scene to start the film off is just, God, it's so good. It's just so well done. I genuinely think once part 2 comes out and we have the whole story, because that's everyone's big knock about the film, is that it just sort of ends on a cliffhanger. But I think once we get both parts of the story, I really think that Denis Villeneuve's Dune will be held up as one of the greatest sci-fi films, I guess, franchises of all time. It's going to be up there, I promise you, once we have the whole complete story. And I still really enjoyed the first part, and I eagerly anticipate the second part. Number 6, we have a really interesting one here. It's a film that I initially thought was, pretty well done, but I wasn't really planning on putting it on my list. And just, again, part of the reason why I like to hold off on doing this list is because sometimes movies will stick with you and you're not really expecting it. And this one has really, really stuck with me. I think about it all the time. Even now, I'm thinking I maybe should have put it higher on the list, but for now, it's at number 6. It's probably one of the films on this list that you've maybe not heard of, but I saw it on a couple other people's lists, and I checked it out on a whim, and it has just really stuck with me. I should stop teasing and just say what it is. It's a movie called Little Fish. It's just so incredibly well done. It stars Olivia Cooke and Jack O'Connell. It's directed by a guy named Chad Hartigan that I honestly have never heard of, but I'll definitely go check out more of his work because I really like this. But ultimately, the story and the characters are what make the film so compelling. It's really well directed, but Olivia Cooke especially, I love her so much. I think the whole world loves her now because of House of Dragons, but I've been an Olivia Cooke fan for a minute because of Thoroughbreds and stuff like that. And she just kills it in this movie. And ultimately, what the movie's about just sticks with me in such a way. I guess to try to sell you on it a little bit, because maybe it's the one that a lot of people haven't seen. There's this virus that's sweeping the world that makes you lose all of your memories. And we see a couple dealing with the repercussions of one of them getting it. And it just makes you ask a lot of questions about who you are as a person and what makes up you, and how much of that's based in memory, and who would you be if you lost all of your memories. And it's also some really great world building in terms of how the world would operate if a lot of people were suddenly just losing their memories completely. It's just so well done and has just stuck with me. I think about it all the time. And so it just sort of crept onto the list and kept growing higher and higher. And I bet you if I'd watched it a couple more times before I made this video, it would be even higher on the list. But for now, Little Fish is at number 6. I highly recommend it. Please check it out. It's just so good. Number 5, we have a movie that I'm still not 100% sure how to pronounce. I'm going to say Tatan, but it could be Tatan. I've heard it both ways. It's a movie by Julia Ducournau. People might remember her from the film she made a few years ago called Raw, which I really enjoyed, and her work has just completely grown on me. I really have come around on Raw. I thought it was okay when I first watched it, but again, like Little Fish, I think about it all the time. She's also got a short film that I really like called Junior that has been weirdly influential on me. But for now, we're talking about Tatan, and I like this movie. It's super freaking weird. It's it's unlike anything I've ever seen, and I love it so much for that. It's ballsy. It takes a huge major tone shift halfway through, and if you are ever followed anything that I do, you know I actually weirdly like a movie that just changes tone completely halfway through, and boy does this one do that. It's a challenging movie. I could see a lot of people not loving it for sure, but it's just the first half is just this weird dark comedy, and then the second half just becomes this movie about two people who really just need a connection in their lives, kind of finding it through each other. And while everything's going on, there's a lot of body stuff going on. There's a lot of exploration of gender, but then actual true like body horror. And I mean, I hate to spoil it, but this was kind of the infamous thing about it. This is the movie where a woman fucks a car. So if that either will get you in the door or it won't, you know who you are. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it, but it's a very extreme, weird French horror movie. So, you know, be advised, but I really enjoyed it. I had a blast watching it in theaters. Thought about it a lot ever since. It's number 5 on this list. Number 4 is The Green Knight, directed by David Lowery. Again, he's someone whose work I'm not that familiar with, but I mean, man, I need to check out more of his stuff because I love the way this movie is directed. I think this is one of the most gorgeous films to come out in 2021. And I just love the way the story unfolds. It's this epic fantasy tale, but it's still very grounded, and you're just watching this interesting character sort of go from set piece to set piece, getting into these sort of like little adventures. And as he goes along, you realize more of what makes him who he is. And ultimately, I find the story to be really compelling because it seems like it's really just a man sort of coming to terms with his own death. And the fantasy elements are sort of few and far between, but I kind of enjoy that about it. And it's really well acted. It's so atmospheric. And I think Dev Patel gives a great performance as the lead. And all the supporting characters are so interesting that he runs into. And it feels like a fever dream when you watch it. And just every little piece feels like its own little story. And they're all just connected to tell this overarching tale of this guy on a journey. And it really stuck with me. I noticed this movie left a few people cold, and it wasn't really in the conversation that much towards the end of the year, but it stuck with me in a big way. I loved watching it. I still think about it all the time. And yeah, it's rocking out at number 4 on my list. So there's that. Number 3 is proof that maybe I'm still a child at heart, but that movie is Encanto. I loved this movie. It was number 2 for a while, but I kind of swapped number 2 and number 3. But one of my favorite theater going experiences of 2021. I was listening to the soundtrack nonstop for almost 2, maybe 3 months. Couldn't put it down. I think the music in Encanto is so good, and I think the story is amazing because it's about a family, and we have a main character who's going from family member to family member and realizing that there's a lot more depth to them and they have a lot more going on that maybe we, the audience, and even she initially realized. And I just think it's so well done. It's a very simple story. I think even kids could enjoy it, but there's a lot of depth to the characters that I think anyone can enjoy. And I feel like people kind of slept on this one a little bit. I know it did pretty well. It's a Disney movie after all, but I just don't think it got the respect that it deserves. I really think the soundtrack is amazing. Every song, I just think every song is good. I trust me, I've listened to them all repeatedly. We don't talk about Bruno. Obviously, everybody loves that one, but just there's so many bangers. I think the thing that really put me over the edge on Encanto when I was watching it for the first time was when Mirabel goes to talk to Luisa, and Luisa has her sort of revealing song about how she's dealing with a lot more pressure than we've realized. I realized this movie was something special. That song really gets me. As an eldest sibling, it definitely touched a core of me that I didn't even realize I had. And I just have to give respect to the film for being able to reach and grasp those feelings inside of me in a way that not a lot of films have done. And maybe it's just because the music it's easier to sort of get into it and get straight to the point, and music is so emotional and stuff like that. But Encanto rules. And I'm super fine putting it this high on the list because I think it deserves it. It was number 2. It's number 3 now. It's honestly all interchangeable. And Encanto rules. It's probably, besides Moana, Encanto's easily a top 5 Disney film for me, I would say. And I know it's maybe some recency bias or whatever, but I genuinely think it's that good. Number 2, we have a movie that I think a lot of people slept on, and I'm really sad about it. I felt like every review for it was, that was pretty good. But when I watched it, it really knocked my socks off. And that movie is Pig. It kind of got billed as it's Nicolas Cage doing kind of a John Wick thing, but with a pig and not a dog. That's not what this film is at all. The trailer is a little bit deceptive for sure. But this is a movie that's about forgiveness and about choosing not to be violent. And it's also about weird underground Seattle food scene, which is interesting. But Nicolas Cage is phenomenal in the film. And I think I'd not heard of this director before, Michael Sarnowski, but he did a great job. Part of the reason why this movie's so high on this list is because I love the way this movie looks. It's gorgeous. The cinematography is great. I even just love the way it's color graded, and it's an all-time performance for Nick Cage, and I think people kind of slept on it. He's really quiet and reserved in the film, but when he finally does open his mouth at certain points of the film, he's got something to say. And man, when Nick Cage is at the top of his game, there's almost no one better doing it. He's been in a lot of crappy movies, but he's been some freaking good movies too. And Pig is one of them. It's number 2 on my list. This movie has fully stuck with me ever since I watched it. I think about it all the time. I think it's incredibly well done. Everyone that said it was pretty good, you're wrong. It's great. It's a great film. I found the character so compelling. Alex Wolff's character too they just have so much going on, so much inner life. And I don't know, every scene, it just sticks with you. It's one of those movies where every single scene, there's something special about it. And I just respect the Pig. Respect the Pig. I don't know what to say. It's my number 2. It's phenomenal. I really like the movie. And last but not least, this will be a slightly controversial number 1. Is it a movie? I don't know. I'm calling it a movie. Screw you. Is it more of a weird stand-up special musical? Maybe, but that is Bo Burnham's Inside. There's nothing that came out in 2021 that affected me more than Bo Burnham's Inside. Yes, it's only an hour long. Yes, it's kind of a stand-up special musical. Is it really a movie? I don't know. I don't care. It is a piece of art that affected me very, very deeply. Bo Burnham was able to reach in and take everything I felt about 2020 and somehow put it into a 1-hour special where he sang some silly songs and he sang some sad songs and he sang some sad, silly songs. And I've watched the special, I think 3 or 4 times now. I could never get enough of it. We were all kind of swept up in the Bo Burnham Inside craze for a minute. I've been a Bo Burnham fan for a very, very long time. I'm talking, he was in his room on a keyboard in like high school. I've been a fan of him for that long. We're roughly the same age. And so he's definitely been an artist whose voice I think reflects a lot of my own thoughts about society and the way I approach art in general and the way he wrestles with how he approaches art in general and his time in the spotlight and stuff like that. I just think he's a really, really special person. And he's also incredibly, what's the word? Not influential, but inspiring to me, because that's another thing that I really love about the special. He directed and shot it all himself. And there's just scenes in the movie that are so remarkably well done. And I just think it should be an inspiration for any low budget person doing anything. This guy shot an amazing special all by himself with all this creative cinematography. It makes me sob every time I watch it. I don't care if it's a movie or not. It's my favorite thing that came out in 2021 besides maybe Arcane. And it's my number 1 thing that I saw. I'll watch it many more times. I'm excited to see Bo Burnham, everything he does going forward. I'm glad Inside was sort of this big blow up moment where everybody really kind of finally got on board for the Bo Burnham train. I'm glad people are aware of him now because he deserves it, even though he maybe doesn't want the spotlight. It's complicated. If for some reason you haven't watched it, I mean, please do. I think especially if you're someone my age, I don't think there's a voice out there that's speaking to our generation quite as well as he is. And it's a really special piece of art that I'm so glad exists. And it's really special to me too. It's why it's my number one thing. So yeah, that's my list. Hopefully it wasn't too painful to get through. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet here. There's not a lot to say. I'm not going to make any promises about my 2022 list. That's just, there it is, my 2021 list. I'm probably showing it right now as a refresher. That's what I liked from that year. If you see something on the list that you haven't seen and it's on my list, check it out. It's on my list for a reason. It's probably because it's real good. But seriously, thank you guys. I love you. I hope you're all doing well. And let's look forward to more good movies. Bye.